Fred VanVleet, undrafted rookie to rising star in the NBA. Fred was raised in Rockford, Illinois, and unfortunately he lost his father at a very young age, as his father was involved in a drug deal and was unfortunately killed. His stepfather then took up the mantle as his father figure in his life, and he was very strict on Fred. He had him wake up at 5:30 every morning, and they performed workouts where Fred wore a 30-pound weighted vest to make the workouts even harder. Fred was quoted on saying that his dad cracked the whip on him, and he had great respect for his stepfather for instilling that work ethic in him from a very young age. Fred went to Auburn High School, which was a rougher school in an area that was plagued with gang violence. In fact, as the school didn't have metal detectors, it wasn't rare to see people in class with guns and knives. But the people of the school saw Fred as a young phenom that could really make it out of his area, and he was given the nickname the Chosen One in his area of town just because of how talented he was as a basketball player. So people decided to protect Fred and keep him out of trouble. This led to great things for Fred. Even though his freshman season he didn't get too many minutes or have the greatest impact on the game, as he's a freshman playing against varsity players, but his junior and senior seasons, he absolutely dominated the competition. His stats are on the screen, and as you can see that he averaged 21 points per game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals per game his senior season. Just phenomenal.
So VanVleet always had a chip on his shoulder, and that was definitely the case when he went to university. He was ignored by the Big Ten schools. He believes it was due to his hometown rep, but he ended up committing to Wichita State. And as the sixth man, as a freshman, Wichita went on a run to the Final Four. They ultimately lost, but he exploded as a sophomore, and he led the Shockers to a 35-0 season where they were upset by Kentucky. But that's really when he asserted his dominance in the line and as a legitimate point guard in the entire NCAA. He was teammates with Ron Baker, who is now playing on the New York Knicks. But obviously, VanVleet is going to have more long-term success in his career. Hot take. But he was a staple player, and he was recognized in his community and outside. We have one experience that he remembers. He was just in a deli, and a woman approached him and said, "I'm sorry, but my daughter has a back-to-back championship game." I think it was. Her daughter was going for her second championship title. So who better to take a picture with than you for inspiration? So he was a guy that was recognized by a lot of people for the impact that he had on the game. He has some incredible stats. The 35-0 season, he's the Shockers' all-time assist leader with 465. He's third in steals. He only needed 15 more wins to be the all-time most winning player at Wichita State. So he's a really big guy at the university, but he unfortunately had an uphill battle. College coaches looked over him. The Cousy Award didn't include VanVleet on the list of top 10 point guards in the nation. He wasn't even considered a top 10 point guard, which is ridiculous. The Team USA passed on him. So he played with that chip on his shoulder, but he has some incredible accomplishments and decided to prove them all wrong by looking to the NBA.
On draft night, Fred didn't expect too much, but he did throw a party for himself to celebrate his whole life up until that point, even though he knew he was being overlooked by the NBA teams. He got a few calls here and there, but he ended up as an undrafted rookie. So that summer, he was offered to play in the D-League for $20,000 by multiple teams, but he turned that down for an opportunity to play on the Toronto Raptors Summer League team. And during that Summer League, he impressed a lot of coaches. He only averaged 6.2 points and 1.6 assists in 16 minutes per game, but he caught the eye of the Raptors coaches and was invited to the Raptors training camp. There's a lot of players that were invited to this training camp that were fighting for the last couple roster spots on the Toronto Raptors. And one of the names that really stood out in that group of guys was Brady Heslip. Hometown Canadian. I know a lot of Raptors fans were looking for Brady Heslip to take that final roster spot, being a name everyone knew. But Fred VanVleet was head over heels better than Brady Heslop in the preseason and training camp and earned that roster spot for himself. He ended up signing a multi-year contract with the Raptors, and that was the beginning of his journey throughout the NBA. His rookie season, he was playing behind 3 point guards, which is always a tough situation, as the Raptors had all-star Kyle Lowry, backup Corey Joseph, and DeLon Wright higher in the pecking order than Fred. But when he did play, he showed through, but he wasn't able to crack the rotation his rookie season. But the Summer League, he really stood out. He proved that he was a definite NBA talent, absolutely decimating players in the 2017 Summer League. And then 2017-2018 season is when Fred really caught his stride. Fred has been absolutely amazing this season.
Yeah, I mean, Fred has been phenomenal, like you said. When we played the Cavaliers, we argued that he was the best 23 on the court.
Better than LeBron James.
Better than LeBron James. Obviously not all season, but in that one particular game.
I don't know. It's arguable.
No, it's not. Not from a Raptors fan perspective. Let's hear what you guys have to think about that, obviously. But it's funny that we had Corey Joseph and VanVleet on the team at the same time. They both kind of Drake lookalikes. So
that is very true.
But yeah, man, like he kind of came out of nowhere, and he's been probably the most confident bench player that we have.
Yeah, well, that's the key thing about Fred. We can talk about his shooting, his defense despite his small stature, his passing, his playmaking, doing the right plays. But I think the best aspect of Fred's game is his confidence. And even because no one looked to him as going to be a huge impact player on our roster this season. But he didn't play like that type of player. He'd always be willing to take the big shots, guard the best player on the other team, or the best guard on the other team. He was not afraid of any challenge, and that's a rare thing in the NBA, despite all the great players.
Yeah, no, it totally is. Now, one of the watchers, Aaron O'Sullivan, shout out to a guy that made the comment, asked us to do really a Fred DeLon comparison. So we won't, on who do we want to pay, because there is going to be sort of a difficult situation next season with, who's going to get more minutes, how are we going to look at contracts, everything, moving forward. But for right now, we're in a really good spot for playoffs because we have DeLon, who's a phenomenal talent, and Fred, who's a phenomenal talent. Both can handle major minutes, major late game minutes, and have the confidence to make big shots.
Yeah, we'll talk about the cap situation, all that in future videos. But right now, we're just appreciating all of the talent we have on the roster. It's like the season where we had Bismack beyond, but we appreciate the talent we have on this roster, despite the fact we aren't sure if he's going to come back the next season. But we got to really take advantage of what we had, and we found a diamond in the rough with Fred. DeLon's also been awesome.
Hit me with this. Without any other player in consideration, I mean, obviously this is a question that you need to consider other players, but just from the perspective of Fred, right? Mm-hmm. Where do you see Fred 3 years from now? What will his role be on any given NBA team?
I think with his confidence and the work ethic we talked about, I think that he could become a starting caliber point guard in the NBA. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if he'll actually get the starting role, but I believe he'll be playing starting minutes. And I know the broadcast loves to throw the name Jameer Nelson out there, but I think he could definitely be that type of player, especially with his shooting in this type of NBA where three-point shooting is so valued. His ability to guard for his size. Fred is just an absolute beast, and I think he's going to do great things in the NBA, and hopefully it's with the Raptors.
Yeah, and I mean, he has a bigger ceiling than Jameer Nelson, obviously, right?
Jameer Nelson was an all-star. Jameer Nelson was an all-star.
Fair enough. And if he's playing starter minutes but not a starter, I think he'd have an easy hat in the name for sixth man of the year. That's
for sure.
For sure.
Maybe even this season.
I don't know. Is he even the sixth man technically for the Raptors?
We have 10 six. We have about 5 6 men on our team.
That's true.
But no, that's our take on Fred.
Yep.
Everyone out there, let us know what you guys think about Fred VanVleet. Are you happy with this progression? Well, you have to be happy with this progression, but
obviously,
let us know your favorite part about Fred VanVleet, how awesome he's been this year. He just broke his career high in points a couple nights ago. Fred's an absolute beast. We're really happy to see where we're gonna go with Fred VanVleet on the roster, and we know he's gonna do great things.
Yep, future's bright.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, and hit subscribe if you like the videos that we make, and leave a comment in the comment section if you agree, disagree, anything like that. Thanks for listening.